Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aaliyah Pollock, and I'm an AI data and technology analyst at the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. For those of you who are not aware, RICS is a global professional body that sets standards for land, real estate, and the construction sectors. With over 110,000 members, we work to advance knowledge, uphold ethical practices, and drive excellence across more than 140 countries globally. In my role here at RICS, I'm responsible for analysing the impacts of data and technology across the built and natural environments. And as part of this, I coordinate the RICS Tech Partner Programme, which is a collaborative platform for professionals working with innovative data and technology. Our goal here is to educate the industry by producing thought leadership content for the surveying profession so that we can bridge this gap between property professionals and technology and innovators, ensuring that new solutions are effectively integrated into the property lifecycle across all asset types. We are also proud to have a partnership with the IFMA, working to increase consistency and transparency through our strategic facilities management framework. Today, we'll be discussing how disruptive forces like decarbonisation, AI, and the COVID-19 pandemic are reshaping the future of facilities management. So I'd like to thank our panelists for being here today, and I'll move across to you. Joanne, would you like to start?
Thanks, Leah. Hello, my name is Joanne and I represent Cirrus 8. We are the leading commercial property management software provider that also includes a full FM system. We leverage technology to enhance the data and analytics and AI of FM and also property management in general. So our system is an end-to-end solution and it's designed to navigate the ever-evolving changes in FM and also in property management. Prior to me starting with PropTech, I did 14 years property management, so I've got a lot of knowledge in the FM space and the property management space as well. So definitely across a lot of the changes that are happening in the world, and it's exciting to be here and share our thoughts with you all.
Thank you very much. And Rick, I'll move across to you.
Yes, good morning, good day. My name is Rick Ralston. I'm the founder and president of Built Space Technology based in Vancouver, Canada. Built Space is a 13-year-old company, and our emphasis is on whole life cycle asset management. So what we do is essentially create a mobile-first, live as it happens, asset management and service management solution for the entire industry across all phases, construction through FM, and create that golden thread of data that's required to manage assets over long periods of time.
And thank you. Last but not least, Michelle.
Okay, hi, this is Michelle. I'm the co-founder and also the Chief Revenue Officer of Subtech Innovation Sdn Bhd. We are a company based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So Subtech is actually a cloud-based smart facility operation and management digital solution. Now, our aim is to improve the operational efficiency of facility and property management of commercial buildings and service providers such as office tower, shopping malls, retail store, hotel, factories, university, hospital, township, and associated service providers. Now, currently, Subtech serves over 680 buildings of site in Malaysia and Southeast Asia. The integrated solution should include issue work order management, preventive maintenance, inspection, asset inventory management, vendor contract management, manpower planning, tenant client request application management, purchasing, budgeting management, management dashboard, sustainability reporting, and also integration with IoT for smart building. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks all. It's great that we have a panel that represents such different markets. So let's get started with this panel discussion. So in the last few years, we've seen significant disruptions in the facility management industry. One of the biggest drivers of change has been the urgent need to decarbonise. As sustainability becomes a non-negotiable part of business strategy, facility managers are tasked with finding new ways to reduce carbon footprints. And then we've got artificial intelligence and machine learning, which have the potential to transform everything from how we manage energy to how we predict equipment failures. And of course, we can't forget the impact of COVID-19. The pandemic forced us to rethink workplace safety, remote work policies, and even how we design spaces for health and wellness. So let's break these down and discuss some of these key topics. And Rick, I'll start off with you. How has decarbonisation influenced facilities management, especially when it comes down to integrating sustainable practices into day-to-day operations?
Well, I think the biggest missing element has been the data. And so decarbonization is putting new pressures on facilities managers to track better quality data. And that obviously starts with energy and water, being able to actually measure the effect of what their activities are on sustainability of their facilities, but also much deeper data about the assets that are consuming that data, the systems, the occupants that are using that data, and so what we've seen is a very large push towards more structured data, more single source of truth, and getting data out of silos that have evolved over the years, and that's a big effort. But we're now seeing here in Canada, for example, there's a movement towards a national decarbonization platform at scale, which is at a federal level, how do we digitize the built environment to be able to capture that kind of data and start measuring consistently processes and outcomes from it.
Yeah, so leading on with that point, you've mentioned how decarbonisation is a main driver for integrating these solutions. And Joe, what would you say? How would you say this has been in your experience in different markets in Australia and the UK, for example?
I think we are seeing a lot of changes in this space, right? And I think the other thing that we are seeing from our customers is the need for those buildings, like the older buildings, to be retrofitted. So I think one of those things is that for us, a lot of green spaces, like you were mentioning, and the data behind all of that. So how are those buildings going to change, and how are they going to integrate that technology in that space as well? So one of the things that we've been working on is just how we can make sure that our clients are keeping up to date with all of that as well. Again, a bit like what Rick was mentioning around the silos, making sure that data is all centralized. And again, in Australia, we're seeing that decarbonisation is definitely coming out in full force, like the rest of the world. So buildings that are 30, 40, 50 years old and now starting to be retrofitted with the green spaces especially, and definitely just around, I guess, optimizing that energy, heating, cooling, and of course the COVID protocols that have come out of that as well.
Yeah, thanks. Rick, was there something that you wanted to add?
Well, just that each market is different, and Australia has a very deregulated market where there's independent system operators, and pricing is down to the minute in many cases for electric demand, and so that is a really exciting market when we start talking about the ability to manage data in a single source. And Australia has done some really great things there. In the Canadian market and the US market, things are quite different, and we don't have the same degree of access to data that is available in Australia for the energy and water on the demand side. So it's interesting to compare the different markets.
Yeah, Michelle, is there any comments you'd like to add about that on looking at Malaysia?
I think Malaysia for the AI or machine learning, and I think we are still not as advanced in, I believe, Canada or Australia, but we do have cases where buildings are started to look into this for the long term. And of course, there are some consideration Other than that, I would say a lot of this adoption of the new, what do you call that, energy sustainability are still pushing hard from a lot of other vendors. Part of it is like in Malaysia, we have a kind of policy in place as well to push all these, to move all this sustainability adoption. Yes.
Moving on to that topic around AI, let's speak about AI and machine learning. So, Rick, I'll move back across to you. These technologies, they've been transformative in many sectors. We've seen them revolutionize sectors such as healthcare and fintech. How would you say that this has been applied within facilities management? Has it been disruptive or has it been beneficial?
It has been very beneficial in many ways and very recent. We're talking about really November of 2022 being sort of one of the huge inflection points with ChatGPT. But even more recently, last week, there was a major advance on the AI side with 4.01. Which has really changed the quality of the data that is available and the reasoning that's available in the AI space. And we are working with it in areas like computer vision. So we've got hundreds of thousands of photos taken by people in the field that we can now mine that data to understand what those photos are showing. In many cases, we can actually read a control panel on an air handling unit and be able to get readings from that, from the needle gauges or the display printout or display panels, in order to better understand what the equipment is, how it's operating, and to collect data more efficiently. So computer vision is one area that is huge, but also on the AI side, I'll call it the almost professional level of insights that can be gained from doing having conversations with or data analytics with some of the large language models that are there, which now have pretty advanced computing capabilities. So what I said 6 months ago is no longer applicable in the industry. The technology has come so far so quickly that it's an exciting time, and but the key thing is that the data has to be out of the silos in a structured format, in an asset information model, in a way that is capturing essentially real-time data about what's happening with people and equipment in these buildings in order to make the best use of AI. So again, when we're sitting with technology companies that are bringing that together, it's a far cry from the old CMMS systems that everybody's used to.
I think one of the other things is it's helping, that data side of things is helping make those decisions for people as well, right? Again, keeping it all centralized, it's helping definitely use that. And I think the other part of that AI that's beneficial for everyone is the scheduling and the security monitoring and all those sorts of things that have helped. AI has just sort of taken over that piece. Where you're not sort of having to think about things and remember things, it's predicting some of these things that are scheduled. So I definitely think that's for sure something that's definitely helping out in the AI space. So all for it.
In our terminology, we've turned away from the idea of scheduled, like time-based scheduling to service orchestration, because we're looking at real-time teams in the field working together and having to coordinate their activities to make sure that it's all happening as efficiently as possible. So, AI is able to help with mining that data to make sure that that's happening. And again, it's not, I'll call it bums in seats with the traditional enterprise asset management where, there's a team of people sitting at desks and trying to orchestrate things. It's now live in the field, having access to the data that they need. And much of that data is currently in traditional systems still locked away, so it's not available to the AI engines.
Yeah, on our end here, I think the AI adoption is coming in as well in Malaysia, or I would say Southeast Asia. Right now, what we can see is, of course, there are both destructive and also benefit. I can see that. Destructive in the way like a lot of organizations are started in our country. Some of the organizations just started to go digitalization, automation, right? And now we are talking about predictive. We are not talking about preventive maintenance, where they have to do the schedule maintenance. While they are just started doing schedule, now we have another wave coming in talking about predictive. So that's one of the things. The other things I look at is beneficial is, of course, we cut down a lot of manual work, right? And a lot of unnecessary manual, like example, we have used a lot of sensor and other things to work on automation. Example, the water tank. They used to be able to check on the water level 3 times a day. Now they don't have to because we have installed a sensor, right? So that automation is also help a lot of manual work, which is very tedious. Yeah.
Thanks. I think AI is such a big topic, and we'll continue to speak about this as we move on to this panel. But just to take a step back and looking at these disruptive factors, I think one that we should mention is COVID-19, which seems like a thing of the past when we mention it, but I think the impact it's had on facility management is still affecting us today. So, Joe, I'll start off with you. How would you say that the pandemic changed priorities and operations within facility management?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was a wake up for the world, right? Everything changed that day, and I think for us and our customers, it was a heightened emphasis on health, safety, flexibility. Especially in Australia, where I'm from in Melbourne. We had 300 days of lockdown, so it was quite a big. Everyone was working from home, so that flexibility and that need was there. And I think the touchless technology came through. So the buildings, needed to change the way people were touching the lifts or getting in a lift or getting in a building. So you saw the adoption of swipe cards everywhere. So a lot of buildings started to adopt that swipe card approach. And then, of course, the cleaning side of things. So that also was a massive change for us, or massive change for buildings in general. The HVAC systems also need improving for ventilation. And so I think those things were definitely quite heightened for us. But one thing I think that also came out of it was the need, and again, back to what Rick was saying earlier, that single source of truth. Software needed to have that centralized data component so that when people were spread out working at home remotely, probably across different regions, different states, it became easier to see that data, see that information quite easily. So I think those were the things that, definitely came out of that sort of COVID pandemic.
Continuing on about like the uses of these buildings, how would you say they differ now from during the COVID pandemic? Are most people still working from home, and how does this affect your day-to-day operations?
Yeah, that was the point that I was going to make. Is that basically the financial asset, which is the building, has actually decreased in value in many markets, in most markets, because of the effects of work from home and reduced occupancy. We ourselves, have had a full office suite, and as of end of June, we actually gave it up and worked entirely virtually. whether that'll stay or not is a question, but it was a something that a lot of companies have done, and the direct effect of reduced occupancy and reduced tenancy is reduced value of the assets. And so part of the recovery is the value of getting people back into the offices, which has again heightened the need for better practices, for more comfort, for health and safety, for transparency, visibility, and in our case, our landlord came to us and said, "Hey, you guys are still here in the building. Why are you here?" They themselves worked from home for some time, and we said, "Well, we want to support the team," and at the end of the day, they said, "Well, you can help us with ensuring that the buildings are cleaned and disinfected." So we actually work with their portfolio and their cleaning staff to validate that every lift was cleaned twice a day, and washrooms were cleaned appropriately, and so forth, and that resulted in well over 1 million services over I think about a 2-year period, where each and every washroom cleaning was digitally tracked, and we can recreate the service history of every elevator lift or lobby or whatever. So yeah, it was a big change on in practice in the building, which continues today, but with things change and financial pressures are pushing a lot of these commercial guys to cut costs where they can, because it's still they're not back to normal yet, whatever normal is now.
Yep, and just to add on, over here we do have seen some building owners are smart enough to convert, to have a flexibility of the workplace. So they are not just looking at just the tenant, they can easily convert the space to some others usage. And I think for FM side, we see a lot of our cleaning customers, which is service provider, they are using technology to actually improve after the COVID, right? They are using a lot of technology, like example, toilet automations, where people counting, they are install this people counting, and social distancing, like example, they get rid of all the tenant access card. So one of the solutions that we provide was we convert all tenant in and out access of the building with facial recognition. Yeah. So this was one of the things that we done. And door access is no longer also using key or card. Everything is also via mobile application. So these are some of the things we done after the COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that COVID was a disrupting factor, but almost like a driver of new technology, which is a positive to take away from the whole pandemic. But moving on and going back to that topic on AI, as we've already touched on, technology, particularly AI, is driving many of the changes in facility management. It has incredible potential to streamline operations, but it's not just about technology for the sake of innovation. It's about using AI to solve real world problems. One of the most exciting applications that you've touched on, Rick, is computer vision, which allows us to gather and analyze data in ways that weren't possible before, like real-time monitoring of spaces for safety and efficiency. But with all this potential, there's also the question of return on investment. How do we make sure these technologies are worth the cost, and how can FM departments adopt them even when budget constraints are an issue? So, Joe, I'll start off with you. Can you provide any examples of how technology, and specifically AI, how have these technologies transformed your operations and improved efficiency?
Yeah, so I think for us, we've definitely tried to, listen to what our customers have needed as well from these buildings. And I think we've adopted AI in our technology and everyday use. We use obviously like the chat GTPs that Rick was mentioning before. And again, that's all changed for us. So I think the greater integration of that is definitely going to help our customers stay on top of things as well as the technology starts changing. I think there's still the fear and the factor of it, but I think once you sort of get into it and you embrace it, it's definitely changing the way we're doing things for sure.
And Rick, moving across to you, I know you've already mentioned computer vision, and forgive me if I'm repeating myself here, but how would you say that these technologies enhance data capture and management within this whole FM space?
It's what we've seen in the construction industry is much of the camera, 360 camera on the top of hard hats and walkthroughs and drone flybys and so forth, and that is capturing data in non-real time. It's after the fact. But what we see, the true advantage is when you're standing in front of a piece of equipment as a field service technician, if we can use computer vision to get down to nameplate level data or what's on the control panel or what are those systems and if you're thinking in the AR, VR space, to be able to present real service data, history data, or very high quality data about the equipment that you're servicing, then the efficiencies of your point of service work or moment of service work are greatly enhanced. And a computer can read a nameplate and enter data far faster than someone manually trying to type it in onto their phone or write it down and transform it later and far more accurately. So we're seeing a lot of that kind of efficiency. But the other big one is I'll call it location intelligence or proximity awareness of okay, I'm here, what else is nearby, or I've completed this task, but the next unit that I have to service is 50 meters away. Let's go and do that one next. And again, we've seen in real life efficiency gains of 50, 60% in terms of more equipment service per hour per day by having access to that kind of data and copilot and a copilot, if you will, to be able to say, oh, hey, you're here. Go and take a look at that air handling unit that's in the mechanical room next door. It needs some work. So that's the kind of thing that is here today and will get even stronger in the future.
Thanks, Rick. You've mentioned some really big examples there of how AI is being adopted. And Joe, I like that point you mentioned about how the industry is fearful of technology. And as an industry, we are very conservative, and the industry does not like to adopt technology generally. So, Michelle, I'll pose this question to you. Leading on from this point, what strategies have you found effective in convincing clients the benefits of AI and new technologies?
Now, there's always the thinking of the risk, right? Example, this is new thing to them, and when they want to adopt AI technology, they would want to ensure that whatever they invested is a success, right? And they will get back the ROI. So I think we have a few approach. First, we always find out what is their objective of having this AI. If we can identify very clear objective, then we will find a solution really will be catered to their pain point. So what we do is we have a certain approach. First is we look at their objective. Second, we will then show them the solution that we're going to introduce to them. And then subsequently, we at time, we have no choice, but we scale down the project to a smaller pieces where we start with a pilot, right? So with the pilot, the risks are smaller, right? And they will feel more confident to move ahead with things like this. And most of the time, we will do sign up some agreement with them. Once this is of the proof of concept or the pilot is successful, then they'll roll out the rest of the unit or the rest of the site. So this is how we approach with them. Of course, ROI justification is have to be there, like we count on the short term and long term as well. So that takes time, but it's worth doing it, yeah.
Leading on that point about return on investment, Joe, I'll move across to you. What would you say are some of the key factors in demonstrating ROI when it comes down to investing in AI?
Yeah, so I think for us, definitely it's probably not just a ROI, but actually the fear factor. I think playing that is really important. I think to Michelle's point earlier as well, just around making sure that you sort of pilot that program first and show them, hey, this is what it is and this is how it's going to work, and it gives them that sort of sense of, okay, well, this might be okay, and I'm okay with this. So I think that's something that we, are definitely looking at, adopting as well for our side.
And Rick, one final question to you on this topic. Moving across from delivering the service to clients, for yourselves, what would you say are the biggest challenges that you face when you integrate new technologies into your existing systems?
Joanne mentioned the fear factor. I mean, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to be able to handle this new process? And in the facilities industry, there's a lot of folks that are nearing retirement and not wanting to really take on something new. But there's a new crop of facilities people that are coming up that are younger and more technology adaptive, if you will. So that sort of the culture in the facility is obviously one of the big factors where we've seen great success and a lot of stress to get things implemented. Again, with COVID and a lot of supply chain shortages and all of the other factors that have come into play, I think in the last 2 years especially, all of those factors have really outweighed the, oh, I don't know, I want somebody else to try it first and let me go from there. The inefficiencies that are apparent are really starting to make it imperative that people make those changes. And we for example seen people call after 2, 3, 4 years later and say, what you guys were doing was ahead of its time. Now it is time, and so we're seeing a lot of return customers saying, let's move it.
Thanks, Rick. So next, we'll move on to this topic around data issues and budget constraints. And Joe, I know you've mentioned some of the points earlier about the issues around data. So with global operations, facility managers often face significant challenges when it comes to data integration. Different countries have different standards, regulations, and even languages, making it hard to consolidate data effectively. On top of that, we've got budget constraints, and that's a common hurdle when trying to implement new technologies. Convincing stakeholders of the value of innovation can be a difficult task. So in this section now, we'll try and discuss how facility managers are tackling these global data issues and overcoming these obstacles. Michelle, I'll start off with you. What would you say are the key data challenges that you observe within facility management?
What we can see here is there's no consistency or standardization. Like example, we work with clients who have like 20 sites or 20 buildings, right? Each building have a different kind of metric. Like you mentioned just now, the service level agreements are different. The way they manage the asset are different, right? Even the scheduler that they set are all different. And on top of that, I think they don't even know what data they need to compile for improvement. So there's a lot of silo data everywhere. So for us is we always look at how we can standardize first, standardize the data. Second is we will roll out some automation, collect the data. And of course, one of the things we did in Subdeck is what we done in Subdeck is we integrate all the component. Example, asset will link to the contract management. Contract management will link to the vendor, right? So all this we compile all the integrated data, and that's how we work instead of everything is silo. So of course, there's a lot of work, and the other part we also see the challenges is the outdated data. Like example, asset management. When we want to start a project, we need to import all the asset, right? A lot of data are not accurate. The accuracy of the data. Second is also the integrity of the data, right? So these are one thing that we also foresee. The other part is also we are talking about security. So a lot of questions we've been asked is how secure our information is with your system. So that is a big answer. I would say 99% of our clients will ask a similar, how secure is my data? And that I think for us, we adopted the ISO 27001, which is which is for data security, right? So privacy and data security. So that is one of the way we assure the customer that the data is safe with us. Yeah. So there are some other things that challenges we face, but these are some key data that we encounter. Yes.
And thank you. Leading on from this point, Joe, given your experience operating across different markets, how would you say that your company approaches these data challenges like the ones Michelle have mentioned? How does your company approach these data challenges on a global scale?
Yes, it's a really good one. And I think, Michelle, thanks for bringing up the data security, because I think that's the biggest one, right? Everyone is worried about where is my data? How is it going to be? Is it going to be taken? Is it going to be stolen? So again, with us, we're ISO certified and SOC 2 certified as well. So data security for us is paramount, right? Anything we do, anything we touch, we make sure that we are across that ISO certification, making sure that we're adopting all of our policies. The other thing for us being on a global scale is we have partnered with a lot of industry experts as well, just to stay across that compliance, that data, and making sure that our system adopts those really quickly so that our customers benefit from those as well. So those are definitely some of the things that we're seeing out of that. But I think, again, when you work on a global scale across different countries, you've got to keep across a lot of different rules and regulations. But we rely on a lot of our partners as well, and our customers who are really experienced in this day to day. They're first to find out from their industry or government bodies. And so we definitely, rely on them to give us that information so we can adopt it straight away, get it in our system so that they're fully compliant with any sort of FM changes or property management changes in general.
So Rick, taking a look at this from a different perspective, also on a global scale, how do you manage data integration when dealing with multiple languages and regional differences?
Well, that again is an interesting area with AI coming into play. We're seeing that you can now translate almost instantly different languages and even almost seamlessly. We're at a point now where I can be looking at our screen in Spanish, French, or English, all with one click of the button. So there's a lot of changes happening in that, and it almost becomes irrelevant as to what language the actual content is stored in, if we have technology that can translate that. But at the same time, standardization of terminology of the transfer, like IFC, for example, is a standard when we start talking about BIM data and spatial data, and the other standards that are out there for ISO 19650, the energy management standards 50,001 and so forth, are all sort of important in bringing the global platform together and being able to manage it effectively. I think that, again, AI is certainly able to help with the verification that standards are being met or not. And yes, the quality of the data is suspect very often. And so if there is are procedures that are in place to be able to verify and validate what's actually happening in the field, as opposed to what the spreadsheet or the old CMMS had to say about equipment that was retired 20 years ago. It's there's a lot of work to be done there, and we all face those challenges, but a much more operationally focused management and service management solution is far more adaptive to that kind of real-time accuracy of the data, if you will.
Thank you, Rick. And now, so we've spoken about the issues around data, but the other half of this topic was around budgets. So Michelle, I'll start off with you because I know you've got some thoughts around this area specifically within budgets in Malaysia. So what obstacles do you face when trying to increase budgets for facility management technologies?
Well, the challenges is, I guess, not every decision maker are aware about the value of technology. And I think a lot of them still feel like I can hire a few people and do the job. But they didn't know that data is something like is so crucial for them. And those data is the one that's going to help them to save money, like cost saving and all that. So I guess justification is something that we need to do our homework. So for costing part, I think for budget, we always look into area again, the objective of what they want, and then we look at how we justify based on some case study that we have, right? So I get case study and sharing some of the name of some industry, same industry that they know of, helps a lot in this to justify why company A embarking this solution, right? So in terms of justification for budget, yes, we have done like ROI calculation, case studies, and we also have been doing some what do you call that, a workshop. We have run workshop with the client to actually let them know how the project works and what is the outcome, right? And also identify what was the challenges that currently the operation team face. So they will give them some idea what solution or what are the solution that we're going to apply to the company, and that help in justifying the budget that we need to embark in the new solution. Yeah.
I was just going to say something else that we've been seeing as well is just explaining to the customers, that future proofing, right? So making sure that they're aware that actually, if you do spend this amount of money now, it's the long-term game, and making sure that they're aware of those. If you adopt this technology now, although it is a cost right now, that long-term benefit is going to be, increased efficiencies, or it might be you're staying competitive, or you might be, for building a commercial building, if you adopt, I think Michelle was talking about face recognition, again, people not having to have swipes and all those sorts of things. So again, people are attracted to technology and attracted to the buildings that, have beautiful green spaces and all those sorts of things. So I think for me, the biggest thing is, future proofing that and making sure that people understand that although you're spending that money now, it's that future cost saving, exercise as well.
Correct. Like example, the facial recognition that we implemented for a few of our clients, they were able to cut down the resources like middle of the night, because the front counter need to handle the passport IC verification for visitor. So with that coming into, like, we have a kiosk to read the passport, a kiosk to read the IC, right? And self-registration, they actually able to cut down some of the technician, the admin job. Yeah. So that really helps. Yeah.
Thanks. So I'll put this question out there for anyone to answer, but would you say that regional perceptions of facility management impact budget allocation and technology investment?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, I mean, look at Michelle. Michelle's already got face recognition on, buildings, and I don't know, Rick, what's happening in Canada, but I don't think we've got any face recognition happening in Australia or the UK that I've seen. So, so I think, definitely region specific, are doing different things. And I guess it's, how fast people are willing to adapt to that technology as well, right? Like I said, we talked about earlier about people getting back into offices, back into spaces. Again, from customers that I'm talking to, they're trying to think of what type of things can I add in my building that are going to attract people back. That sort of end of trip facilities, is it going to be gyms? Is it going to be the green spaces? Can I have some quiet zones, and, all this sort of stuff. So that's what we're sort of seeing from that, or out of that as well.
And I would say that the various governments at all levels are largely influencing what has to happen in buildings, and cities who are saying you shall record scope 3 emissions in new construction, or province or state or federal level compliance for various things that really do impact the operating budgets of the large facilities. And I think there are regionally, a much in some markets, very much a we're going to do this at scale, whereas countries and markets are saying, well, let's try it here in this little pilot. But that sort of insight and sort of future proofing is very different in different markets. And again, thinking of some of the markets in the Middle East and so forth, where let's do things at a big scale and create digital cities and so forth that are very different than what's happening in some of the North American markets.
Thanks, Rick. You've actually tied on very nicely to our final topic, which is around standards and compliance. As facilities management continues to evolve, standards and compliance are becoming even more critical. Whether it's meeting sustainability targets, ensuring health and safety, or adhering to local regulations, facility managers need to stay on top of an increasingly complex set of rules. And with globalization, it's essential to understand how different markets approach compliance. So, in this final section, we'll dive into how standards are applied across different regions and how they relate to trends like decarbonisation. So, Michelle, I'll start off with you. In your
Mm.
opinion, what standards and compliance issues are the most pressing in your region?
I think at the moment, we do have, like example, health and safety regulation, which is compliant to the occupational safety standard. We call it OSHA, OSHA. This been applied to most of uh, the, the processes in the FM. Another one is the fire safety compliance, which we make sure the buildings comply with the local fire safety regulation, right? And this is crucial. There will be a certificate issued yearly on that inspection, and you get a cert. Energy efficiency standard. This is something like efficiency of management of the electrical energy regulation in Malaysia. The next is environmental regulation, and this environmental impact compliance, such as Malaysia Environmental Quality Act, right? And other than that, we are talking about the data privacy security that just now I mentioned. Other than that, I think we have like building codes and regulation. Another one that is coming up quite popular in the high-rise building, green building certification. And this is as a sustainability become priority. FMs need to get this standard for green building index. We call it GBI. So so it recognized like in the recognized certifications such as LEED, right? Other than that, I think we have other pandemic-related health protocol. Things like, example, if you're not well, what should you do? If not come to office, things like that. Yeah, these are some common compliance, or I would say standards and compliance in Malaysia.
And thanks, Joe. Moving across to you, what standards and compliance do you deal with the most, and how do these vary across different regions?
Yeah, so I think Michelle touched on most of them, but I think again, sustainability is one of the biggest ones that we're seeing at the moment. So the green or green buildings and also just greenhouses in general now in Australia specifically, they've moved to less gas, so it's all becoming electric. Again, a bit like the electric cars, but our houses are becoming all electric, and so part of that is definitely the same across the board. And I think, again, still out of that COVID pandemic, we're seeing those health protocols in the buildings, making sure that the standards are up to compliance with any sort of, sanitization and, all those sorts of things. If you're sick, stay home, all those parts as well.
And Rick, finally, I imagine you'll probably mention most of the ones that have already been mentioned, but what would you say are the most appropriate standards in the context of current industry trends?
And I guess it's what I've just heard is we are the most regulated industry in the world, I guess, in facilities management. It covers everything, but where we're seeing the push is really ESG reporting and related, again, Joanne's sustainability and Michelle as well with green buildings. But how are we doing carbon accounting and what does that mean for the industry? That to me is a big one. But obviously everything else is table stakes to run a portfolio of facilities, and so it's everything. And then on I guess the final sort of standards that we need to look at is the digital standards and how we can all work together and build space can work with Cirrus and with Michelle's company and other companies around the world to have a cohesive digital environment to work in, and we are seeing scale now where this is the countrywide platform for
decarbonization or for reducing greenhouse emissions or whatever the government wants to call it. It's all about less impact on the world.
Thanks. And just a question to everyone, whoever wants to answer. How do different markets approach standards and compliance, and what lessons can be learned from these approaches?
I would say that there are certain markets like the UK that are leading in that area, I think that other countries are taking what's happening in specifically the UK market to say what should we be doing here, and so from that perspective. RICS is kind of leading that chase, but there's a lot of things happening that are sort of regionalized versions of digital twins and other things that are really top of mind in the UK and European markets.
I think just to that point too, Rick, Europe in general has a great, they're starting to adopt a lot of that, I think, a lot earlier than the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. You sort of see, a lot of the green spaces, pollution on car tax, all that sort of stuff. So, there's all of those things. And I think, you're right. A lot of people are looking to the UK, Europe, for those examples so that they can then, push them into their own countries. But of course, we're all governed by the government as well, right? So whatever they're pushing out as part of that, we need to adopt as well.
So I guess in here, we are always pushing for ISO, which is the global standard, yeah? So this is also part of how we can catch up with the global standardization, right? The standard, yeah.
And another question to everyone: would you say that there is a direct correlation between those markets that are doing really well with the standards? Is there a correlation between that and the adoption of technology?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're the ones that are probably driving that first. They're probably adopting that technology first and then standardizing it from there. You can definitely see it here in the UK. You can see it somewhat in a bit of Australia, but I think, Europe is probably leading the way for sure.
I think over here we do have clients who have ISO, and then they started to adopt technology because they need to comply with the ISO, right? So I think both ways. I would say yes, the ISO is the guide for them. The technology come in to enhance or to automate those what they call policy. Yeah.
And just very quickly, I think we have to be careful too, because there are semi-adoption of standards which are not adoption of standards, where there are organizations that are saying, oh, I'm ISO 19650 compliant or whatever the standard is, and yet they're only looking at a very small part of what that standard is, and says, we're compliant in this little bit, and the overall vision for some of these standards are very comprehensive, and yet we're seeing standards washing, I guess, is the way of calling it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So do your homework.
Yeah. And is there anything that you think professional bodies like the RICS could be doing more of?
I think just informing, the wider group, right? Trying to standardize things, I think, on a global scale is very hard. But given RICS involvement at a global level, I think they're in a position to probably do some of that. And I think just talking about some standards, like, we're talking about, keep bringing it back to the face recognition, because I'm quite intrigued by that one. But, I think it's, again, just speaking about different things that are happening in different countries. You probably read about it, but it's, sometimes hard to find, or, but I think if, RICS was to push that, agenda. Hey guys, this is what's happening in Kuala Lumpur, this is what's happening in the UK, this is what's happening in Canada, this is what Australia is doing. People become a bit more aware of that. So yeah, but I think, given that you guys are on that global scale, I think you're in a great position to do that for sure.
Yeah.
I would add that one of the areas that is really going to be a concern with AI is governance, and how do we ensure that AI is giving us the right answers, not what somebody else wants us to hear, and in terms of the facilities management. There's a huge potential for having AI go astray if it's not governed properly, and that role is something that I think our standards have to address very quickly if they're not there yet, and when things are happening on a weekly basis in this space right now, it's something that is difficult to keep up with. But in our case, we're looking at how do we scale something that is national or global in scale as digital infrastructure, and who needs oversight on that? We're not talking about an enterprise asset management system anymore. It's an industry-wide collaboration and decarbonization platform that's got thousands of participants in it, and who's writing the standards for that, and so there is a huge space for that in the RICS organization, I think.
I guess that's exactly what I think we need. Example, predictive maintenance. Is there a standard, like how do we operate, right, a machine and things like that? I believe Rick brought up a very good topic here, where I don't see any standard right now, right? Like for a company or a solution to look at as this is the best practice or this is the standard. Thank you, Rick, for bringing that up. Yeah.
No problem.
So thank you all for participating in this discussion. It's clear that the forces shaping the future of facilities management, whether it's decarbonisation, AI, or the challenges brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, are both challenging and bringing full opportunity. I want to thank our panelists for their valuable insights, and to everyone here for being part of this important conversation. Together, we're helping to define what the future of facilities management looks like. So, as a takeaway, continue to keep this conversation flowing and address some of these key issues to grow together as an industry. Thank you to our panelists, and I look forward to chatting about this again in the future.
Thanks
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.